Subscribe to GovExec Plus on YouTube and stay informed on the latest in public sector news, insights, and thought leadership. Scan the QR code now or search for GovExec Plus on YouTube.
Hello and welcome to Capabilities at the Edge. I'm your host, Courtney O'Neill Allen with GovExec TV. Today, agencies must navigate the world's most unpredictable and high-risk environments, from remote postal routes to battlefields and contested domains. Frontline workers, warfighters, and IT leaders are facing unique and technical challenges that require the strategic deployment of advanced and adaptive technologies, such as Gen AI, machine learning, and also using data analytics and threat detection from frontline warriors. We'll explore how CIOs and technologists from the country's foremost civilian and defense agencies are using secure infrastructures, innovation, and operational advantages to enhance edge capabilities and achieve technological superiority. And joining me for this discussion is the Commanding General from the U.S. Army Network Enterprise Technology Command, Major General Jacqueline McPhail. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Courtney. It is great to be here.
So wonderful to have you virtually joining in from your base in Arizona. And in studio, we have Bob Costello, the Chief Information Officer for the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency at DHS. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Courtney. Pleasure to be here with you today.
Love it. And in addition to that, Nabila Babari, the Business Area Vice President for Cyber, Law Enforcement, Intelligence, and Citizenship at GDIT.
Thanks, Courtney.
And last but not least, Ricardo Paljano, the Senior Solutions Architect at Amazon Web Services. Thank you, Ricardo.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's dive right in. So to kick us off, you all have extensive IT careers. Can you share a little bit more about your experience at the Edge and maybe describe what the Edge looks like, given that it's an evolving space and an area that has grown and changed so much throughout your careers? Bob, I'll start with you.
Oh, thank you, Courtney. Pleasure to be here today. Well, as I enter year 25 of kind of doing this, my career has certainly changed. I started in the Air Force, where my first squadron, our motto was "Calm for the Warfighter," and that's what we did. As I've progressed through my career, I'm entering next year 18 years at DHS, where I've worked across now 3 different components. So at Immigrations and Customs Enforcement and Customs and Border Protection, it was really law enforcement safety, operator safety, our agent safety. It could be, can I get that radio signal, where the operators are. Right now over at CISA, it's helping, protect the civilian side of the government, the federal civilian executive branch agencies, and our critical infrastructure partners. So my edge might be that small water utility that we're helping, get through either a cyber event or to prevent one, and also making sure that all of CISA's employees can operate safely wherever they are.
Wonderful. And Major General McPhail, to you, I know you've got an extensive career in the armed services. Tell us a little bit more about what you've seen over the past few years.
Yeah, so no, thanks. I appreciate it. So first of all, I'm on my 33rd year
Wow.
in the Army.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. I came in 1992. I would say, the edge kind of looks the same, right, for us in a tactical environment. But what's different is, what's at the edge, right? The information we're delivering. So, in 1992, that was the beginning of the internet. It was, for us, the edge communications was really about radio communications. You would have some computers, like at a battalion and brigade level, but really, the big thing for us was having a mobile radio, which was like a brick, and mounted in a vehicle, same as the cars that we, back in those. I don't know how old you are. I'm not going to guess, but in that time frame, Uh, and so, just to be able to have that voice at the edge uh, was significant. When we got fax machines, that was huge in the tactical network. So, just kind of, laying out where we were and where we're at now. And so now we're going from these, from a very, cable, not like fiber, but like your standard cable to fiber, you know, connecting to your talks. We have gone from having handsets to radios to handheld computers, from that wired to wireless environment. And then our infrastructure no longer has to be physically there for those organizations. It can now be a virtual infrastructure, cloud. So really, when we start talking about comms to the edge, we're going from delivering voice to the edge to now delivering data to the edge. We've gone from bits to gigabytes, and I would say it's growing beyond gigabytes. In my world, it's petabytes, but at the edge, I think gigabytes is probably a good assessment. And then we went from encryption of the transport to now encrypting that data, which is really where industry best practices is that zero security or zero trust security framework. So a lot has changed, but what hasn't changed is we still have to get the right information or the right data to the right place, right time, to enable that warfighter to be lethal.
Love that. Love that perspective. The who, what, when, where, and the foundational aspects of sharing information and communicating across other agencies. So with that, Nabila, tell us about your experience.
Hey there. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely.
So I think like Bob, my career I didn't expect to go on this journey quite as it is, and I'm grateful for it. But I started at DHS. Well, it's almost 20 years ago now, but my career started in academia. I was a policy person, a teacher, and that kind of came into the Department of Homeland Security around 2007, where I was focused mostly on, again, policy and physical security. And that kind of took a turn in many ways, mostly at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, but it was another program before then and before then. So, it kind of morphed into a real cybersecurity and IT mission, and that made a lot of sense. And even now, it still resonates as very true that these matters are inextricably linked. So the change that I've seen over, I think, these 20 years is really one that has all these really important topics kind of come together, culminating with the change that I've seen the most, which is the threat landscape. There, the ability in the past to kind of bifurcate some of these threats and issues, knowing that there's nation state actors, but not really targeting them and speaking about them the way we do today. And also the change in belief of the global issues and homegrown and local issues, that national security is local security. These are all kinds of concepts that were really lofty over time, and now they're everyday. Terms like ransomware, supply chain,
Right.
And how the edge kind of feeds all into this. These were concepts that I think were not thought of or spoke about as freely as they are now and as widely, and that is key to our holistic security. So I think that's been the greatest change that I've seen over the years, and we're right on the cusp of all this greatness now. So it's been a pretty interesting journey.
It's pretty exciting. Ricardo, how about you?
Sure. So I've been in the industry for over 20 years now, primarily working with federal, DoD, Intel. And my first edge deployment that I was involved in, we had to upload high-resolution photographs for public relations purposes, and it was next to impossible.
Okay.
People would give up halfway just because of the intermittent connectivity and the amount of time it took to upload it. We ended up having to chunk things up and then actually upload it over the course of several days.
Wow.
And that's completely changed now, especially with the advent of low Earth orbit satellites, LEO satellites. That has allowed us to have additional bandwidth and less latency, more importantly. And then also the thought of having a compute capability of a data center at the edge was unheard of. Now we have advanced GPU capabilities that can fit in the form factor of a handheld drone that can also do object recognition and run AI models on it.
It's exciting stuff. And to all of your points, we don't think about the technology that we use in our daily lives. And also, I should say, everybody looks very young, despite all this awesome experience that you guys have. So with that, General McPhail and also Bob, I have a question to both of you. How would you describe the most pressing challenges that your organizations are facing when operating in high-risk and contested environments, particularly as it relates to, as we just heard, the topic of data, connectivity, and cybersecurity? Ma'am, I'll start with you.
Yes, great question. I'll kick it off, Bob, if that's okay. So, really, our biggest challenge is the speed of change and the speed of need. And so I'll break those out to where the speed of change that came up a minute ago, that threat landscape, the threat landscape, the cyber domain specifically, is continuously changing. It's a man-made environment, so it's easy to change that environment. So we have to make sure that our network defense is agile. We have to be agile within this threat landscape, which also means we're continuously modernizing. So we're modernizing that. As we modernize, it's baking in that cybersecurity for us in that perspective. But also we're more connected. So you asked about connectivity, right? We're more connected than we've ever been. So what that means is, if you do an aperture analysis, if you're the threat you're looking at the aperture analysis, all your points of entry, we have a whole lot of points of entry now into our environment. And so, and pulling that thread a little bit more on the connectivity, is there's something called the CIA triad, and it's really about information, and it's confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And so when we look at that CIA triad, we have to make sure that when we look at the confidentiality, that our data is only accessible to those authorized individuals or systems. We have to make sure the integrity, we maintain the accuracy. So it was mentioned a minute ago about having to send information in chunks. I think it was a visual that you were sending. Well, when we're in a disconnected environment, that data is being broken up in chunks, so it's being interrupted. And so we have to maintain the accuracy, make sure we have that trustworthiness of the network, not just from an enemy perspective of coming after our data, but just the disconnected environment. And then it has to, we are ensuring that it is both accurate and it's complete. And then availability. And that's really when I start talking about the speed of need. It has to be timely, it has to be reliable, that access to the data and the system when needed. And so we have to ensure, as we continue to evolve, if the data transmission is interrupted, that it can pick up where it left off. It doesn't have to start all over again, which is very much of a challenge that we have had through the years as we really modernize our networks and modernize our what we call mission command systems, and that data that's pushing to where, hey, if it gets interrupted, it's okay, it's going to pick up where it left off. And so those are some of the challenges that we're facing in that contested environment.
Thank you for that. And we're looking forward to diving more deeply into what the Army's modernization efforts have been over the last few years. Bob, over to you.
No, thank you. Well, I generally now don't have to work in contested environments, so it's a little bit different. But I think now, like, the way I really see CIS's role is, our job is to help defend the federal civilian executive branch.
Okay.
That is a contested environment. We are under attack every day, day and night. And it's our job to give those agencies the resources, the guidance, the advice, to be even more effective each and every day. And my organizations, I try and bring, when I first came to CISA, I came from a different environment. I had worked at CBP and ICE for 12 years, law enforcement, operator-centric. That's what I try and bring to my teams, an operator-centric mindset. Understand the operators, understand the threat hunters. I'm now dual-hatted, running part of our cybersecurity mission set, as well as the CIO, trying to bring that operator-centric mindset. Everyone's an operator. I don't care if you work in the CFO area. Your mission is to make sure we can pay our bills, acquire the things that we need. And I want our threat hunters to get the information that they need on time, on target, and have systems that are easy to use. No one wants to swivel chair back and forth between 5 different systems to achieve their mission. So that's what I'm really passionate about. I think some of the other work we do, CISA has a broad mission set. Our emergency communications division is focused on ensuring that we have survivable communications for continuity of government. We can get priority voice calls through when they are needed. And we also provide the telecommunications service priority kind of service to the whole of government, that should there be an outage, we can work with the carriers to, enact restoral priorities and different codes to kind of get those circuits restored, which I think is a critical function that we provide at CISA.
So mission needs its speed. Sounds like a running theme
Absolutely.
here. So Major General McPhail, going back to you and highlighting that the Army has had a keen focus on modernization before it became a trending topic, so to speak. How does the mission focus of protecting the network influence your approach to technology adoption and modernization as you look towards the future?
Sure. Thank you for that question. I mentioned earlier that when we're looking at how we protect that data, we're doing a lot of this through that continuous modernization. And what that means is we have something called the Zero Trust framework. And so that's what we are applying to our modernization. It underpins everything we're doing. We are creating a unified network based on the Zero Trust principles. And so when we look at, what we have to balance is, okay, how do we achieve balance in our agility and compliance? So what we don't want to do is we don't want to impact the warfighter's ability to be agile on the battlefield. We don't want to impact our ability to be agile within the network. But at the same time, we need to secure it, which means compliant. A lot of that is compliance. And so as we've been working through this continuous modernization, we are looking at, okay, how do we better verify every user? How do we validate every device to protect our systems, applications, and our data? We do that we've been doing it through what we call the Army endpoint security, as well as comply to connect. And so those are like two kind of buzzwords, but what's really important to take away from there is we've automated it. And so being able to automate how we are securing our endpoints, which are those devices, and then how we are ensuring that for somebody to connect into the environment, they're in compliance with the security. It has been automated to an extent to where even the user can see where they're at in compliance, so they know ahead of time. And so then, as we're moving forward, what we're seeing is doing this has actually made us more agile, and it's allowed us to really achieve. Actually, go back. It's allowed us to achieve a balance that we've never had between agility and compliance. We also have probably the best visibility that we have had of our environment in a very long time. We still have a ways to go. We're going to continue to do this. So we're looking at, I think it's the first Zero Trust framework has a series of pillars and tasks that you have to accomplish. And we're getting after probably the first 45 to 75 now. But there's more that we're going to have to get after. So really it's about, ensuring the security of the device, ensuring that the user only has access to the data they're authorized to have access to, and that those devices are in compliance with security throughout modernization. And so, I'll talk about it later if you'll allow me. I want to talk about how we're also leveraging something called the Army Unified Directory Services as part of this approach towards the Zero Trust framework. I mean, it really underpins much of what we're doing. But I'll pause there so Bob can answer his portion. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. And, we're looking forward to diving deeper into that. I know you highlighted in some of our conversations offline about the connectivity and how people can go out in the field no matter where they are and log into that system and not have any capability issues that presented themselves in years past. So looking forward to revisiting that. But Bob, going back to you and maybe dispelling some of what we know about CISA versus what we don't know. We understand that CISA supports civilian agencies, other federal agencies, but how does CISA work with defense organizations like the Army in hardening critical systems as well as, when focusing on disconnected or degraded network conditions?
Sure, and we are definitely a civilian side of the government cyber defense operations.
Yes.
So we have a great working relationship through Northern Command and several other groups that we work with very closely.
Okay.
And we definitely share best practices between ourselves and the defense industrial base, NSA, and DoD as a whole. I think really a lot of what we do, we may call it different things, but it's very similar.
Okay.
DoD has a slightly different approach to their zero trust maturity model than CISA, but it's a broad overlap on how you apply them. You can pick one or the other and be just fine.
Okay.
So I think what I'm excited about is, as we go into, becoming, I think, a new model of CISA and becoming very operational right now. How do we become more effective? How do we increase our partnerships? How do we increase information sharing? We have to break down those data silos. When I first got to CISA about 4 years ago, like the infrastructure security teams were like, no one can see our data but us. Cyber teams can't see that data. It's my data. My role as a CIO is to break those down and make sure that data is available to the right people at the right time with the right authorization. And then we audit who's looking at the data and making sure that our data is collected in a way that makes it effective. I have teams right now working on data to make sure that it's AI ready. You can't just throw things into an AI and hope that things will be wonderful.
Right.
Sometimes they are, sometimes they're really bad. So those are all things that we're working on. And CISA does maintain, through our liaison network, great working relationships with the National Security Agency, Northern Command, and a lot of other parts of government, so that we're sharing information and that we're able to support each other in a time of need.
Wonderful. Nabila, I'm going to go back to you. So for those that don't know, you have an extensive background, having worked in CISA and DHS and beyond, with your 360 view now, being on the other side in the industry. Can you speak to the evolution that you've seen through your career, listening to Major General McPhail as well as Bob in the present, and talk about maybe some things that industry partners should understand better when it comes to data sharing, modernization, and such?
Yeah, sure. It is definitely a 360 view. I actually think, not unique to me, but it is one that is really, really important to successfully executing our missions, whether they're on the battlefield, militaristically, the military battlefield, or the one that is a little closer to home in Washington, D.C., sometimes navigating the federal civilian and executive branch and protecting the .gov. The topic that both Bob and the General have brought up is about automation. And I think some of the barriers to entry are around automation, whether that is how we automate normalizing data, right? Step one, normalizing data. How we automate the access to this data in a way on contested and disconnected in landscapes. We're not always on the direct battlefield abroad, but we are on a battlefield against emerging technology and against the adversary. And so we need to bring better automation. And I think when the full 360 view I have is one where I see there is an opportunity here for us to really take mission cyber to the next level. Okay. There's a lot of understanding around technology. There's a lot of understanding around mission. Bringing those together, I think, is the new systems integrator approach to national security that I'm excited to be on this side of the aisle now supporting, because it's definitely a gap. Bob spoke a lot about the partnerships, and certainly speak at length about titles and authorities. But one thing that is also different from when I started to what I see now is an open-minded approach to not just the public-private partnership, but how we approach titles and authorities and sharing information in a way that is safe and secure, but is agile enough to meet the demand.
Right.
We're not letting those become barriers to entry. We have enough of those. So we're moving some of the manual data, removing some of the cost inefficiencies and the operational inefficiencies through automation, and kind of getting out of our own way sometimes is going to be the difference, I think, in from great to good and ready or not.
I love that. great to good to ready or not.
Or good to great.
Or good, yeah.
Great,
We do it.
No, we want to go right.
Yeah, start at the top. Ricardo, how about you from a data and cloud perspective? Anything to weigh in here that maybe industry should better understand?
Yeah, I mean, so we've talked a lot about the way that we can communicate with people on the edge, right? The only way that we can do that is with having redundant, resilient pathways. So that's one of the things that I've had the privilege of working with GDIT on, is actually demonstrating that in the field, in exercises, showing that you can have the loss of one of those pathways and have almost zero interruption to that communication. So because you're able to continue feeding data into whatever you're feeding it into, whether it's a data lake or an AI model, you're still able to continue achieving that mission.
That's awesome perspective. Bob, I'm going to go back to you because you talked about AI and machine learning, touted as like the game changer. It's going to fix all of our problems. How does CISA recommend that organizations use AI and ML for operational effectiveness, given the barriers that we've all highlighted still exist?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think, CISA has a role in this, not often on advising how best to use AI, how to maybe secure AI.
Okay.
And I can talk a little bit about how we're using it.
Okay.
And we've been super excited. In recent months, we've really been able to move a lot faster than we were previously.
Okay.
A lot of the recent changes have dramatically helped us kind of leapfrog forward in our approach. So, first and foremost, we were like the first DHS agency to deploy Copilot to our entire federal workforce, which has been pretty cool. Is it going to solve all our AI problems? No. Could it potentially make me have less grammar errors in my email? Maybe. It will always start them. So I hope this email finds you well, which I completely delete each and every time.
Yes.
Because often I hope the email does not find you well. But that's a workforce enabler.
Yeah.
It's allowing our people to get a taste with something that we consider very, very safe. I have a very strong partnership with James Bird, our Chief Privacy Officer. We work hand in hand, day and night, to make sure that the things that we're deploying are safe and effective.
Okay.
We recently had a really good win with a group in our Integrated Operations Division that support Emergency Support Function 2, which is the communication sector for the government, and ESF 14, which is cross-sector of all the emergency support functions. There are about 16. You can read about them. It's very interesting work. But we were able to actually take a lot of data, throw it into an LLM called CISA Chat, and they were actually able to get a report out that previously used to take about 3 or 4 days. It met about 80 to 90% of what they were looking for. And then we do a lot of human reviews. But it enabled them to work faster, to model potential storm damage in a different way.
Okay.
And that's what I'm really excited about. I do think people need to understand AI at all levels.
Yes.
And I do think what we're often seeing, and you could see it in schools or elsewhere, people are asking the AI to produce things, and humans can still tell that was an AI.
Yes.
That's not what we want.
Right.
And what I really want is people to understand things. And I don't want, one of the things I am forever most grateful for was not being a really great person after high school and then joining the Air Force 4 years later in 1999, but learning that our people are first and foremost thing. My junior troops are the people I need to take care of the most. They're the people I need to enable to take over for me when I leave. But we also have to train them to use these things effectively. And I don't want anyone to lose the critical thinking that humans bring. And we are still far ahead of AI in any of that.
That's a good point and takeaway. Maybe something to talk about in part 2 of this conversation. Major General McPhail, as we talk about data and advanced technology, which is mission critical elements for our nation's defensive strategy, can you dive into more about that topic you wanted to highlight, the Army Unified Directory Services? How has that facilitated the system of modernization and operational flexibility?
Yes, sure. So first of all, a couple of things. I think it's important that I go back a little bit in the background to where this journey and how we have gotten to where we're at with what we call the Army Unified Directory Services. So the Army's been on a journey to unify their network. And part of that unification was also based on those zero trust principles. And so we started with about 47 different organizational networks. And so a big part of our effort was, okay, now we got to converge these networks into one. And so we're down to, I think we have like 7 or 8 remaining, which is huge to go from 47.
Yeah.
But I wanted to give that background because part of that organizational network and what we're converging is also all these different Active Directory for us. So every base post camp station had their own domains, they had their own Active Directory for us. And so that made it very difficult for us as we were you know, trying to be mobile and move across, move globally, move into different operating environments, whether it's Southwest Asia, Europe, and so every time folks had to move to a different location, they would have to what we call re-image their computers. Very time intensive. Your signal officers were going way ahead of any of the other members of that staff to just get the systems ready to be able to operate on the network there. And so we have moved to a single directory service. Today, it's in the unclassified environment. We will be moving towards a similar capability in the classified environment. But what does this mean and what is it? So it is a single cloud-based directory. That's what makes it, that technology is what makes it so agile for us, to go back to the term I used previously. And so we use what it's called, Azure is the Azure environment. It is designed to really enable seamless movement of our users globally. And then it's also underpins much of where we're going with the Army Unified Network based on those zero trust principles. It's standardizing policy enforcement and enhancing the security. So before each base post camp station, we'll say it had creative liberties to how they employed policy. Yeah. Some were more stringent than others. Now it's standardized and it's actually delivered from here at the NetCom headquarters from our global cyber center. So it is centralized. And I highlight that because folks will ask, hey, what problem were you trying to solve? Well, part of that problem was that the global accessibility, making sure we had the seamless movement of our users across all the theaters. Then we add in other compos. So compo 1 and 2 and 3. So active duty is compo 1, not to insult anybody's intelligence. Compo 2 is National Guard, and 3 is the reserve. Well, for the first time, all of our end user devices are now all in the same directory environment, which is significant. If you were to look at even what, if we had an event that we had to respond to, like 9/11 on our homeland. So now we can really interoperate much better together. It also, I talked about what Zero Trust was doing in some of the automation, but it's also evaluating our users' identity, their devices, and what data is being accessed. And it's doing that, at that point in time. One of my individuals that works at AUDS, he's like, hey, ma'am, I've seen that you've logged in 4 times from the conference in Hawaii. I'm like, stop watching me.
Yeah, exactly.
We have that level of information now, which is great. And that, we either grant or we can deny, access. And so, I talked earlier about that seamless movement. When 18th Airborne Corps went into Kuwait, they had to reconfigure all their computers first. So that's just the perspective. And then years later, when they went into Europe, same. But our most recent deployment of forces into Europe, the rotational forces, first AD, they were on AUDS and were able to get right on the network. And then the last thing we talked about AI ML. I do want to add in a little bit of what we're doing with AUDS for that. So we're in the process of integrating our Army 365 with Ask Sage, which is the Army's large language model, to where you can send a question from our 365 environment Teams, which is the same environment AUDS works in, and you can send that via Teams as an example and Ask Sage. You don't have to just go into a web-based browser. We're bringing all those tools and integrating them together.
That's really
Is that enough for you?
Yeah, that's a great answer. That will work. That's really amazing work that you're describing, and visually, we're just seeing operational efficiency from boots on the ground to your offices there. Nabila and Ricardo, as we heard, safeguards and controls are vital, right? So when deploying AI and data sharing, especially when the decision making needs to happen at speed. It's a two-part question. So Nabila, here's your question. Can you discuss how zero trust principles are applied in this context and maybe why they're so crucial in edge environments as they become more increasingly complex? And Ricardo, to you, in your opinion, why is the human factor so important when it comes to data sharing in this equation? Nabila, let's start with you.
Okay. Zero trust, if ever was important, now is the time.
Okay.
There's almost no point in us focusing on getting better data quicker to folks if it's not the right data, right?
Right.
No compromise is going to be acceptable in this current environment. So I think there's some of the work that we're doing with our current AI platforms is really optimizing the no compromise mentality and no breach is acceptable. At the end of the day, it's going to be the difference between becoming a response operation or an operation of resilience. Getting data there and getting it decided on and acted upon is critical. And the compromise, there's no room for compromise. And that's kind of the old adage, if you're a hammer, everything's a nail.
Okay.
At the risk of sounding like that, I do believe that whether we're approaching the battlefield that the general is focused on or the one that Bob is focused on,
Right.
the intensity and the mission is the same. Zero trust has to be there. And we're dealing with these variable environments. So sometimes we're talking 5G, sometimes we're talking space. We have to apply and, again, use these cost efficiencies through automation and AI. Use some automation in normalizing the data and all the wonderful tools and capabilities and vendors that are out there. There's still a way to integrate it in a way that makes us, helps us meet our well, not just our adversary, but also the folks we're supporting where they are.
Right.
If we're spending time normalizing any level of data, right? There's no level that should be acceptable. Then we're wasting time. We're opening up the aperture for compromise. So using automation to bring in better normalization of data to get it where it needs to get faster in a decision making way is ever a challenging landscape, but it's all very doable. I think I keep saying we have to get out of our own way sometimes, but I think that's the perspective of being on this side now in the 360 is when you understand the mission and you understand the industry and the technology and the emerging threats, there's an opportunity here to really have a fresh perspective on it. So that's zero trust is all the more important in that way.
I love your perspective and positivity too.
Yeah.
The can-do attitude is very important for the mission-critical work. Ricardo, how about you?
Sure. So human-in-the-loop systems exist so that people can collaborate with AI. It allows them to provide input, feedback so that the AI can improve, and then ultimately oversight so that we can make sure that it's doing what we want them to do. But at the end of the day, a human's going to have to make a decision.
Okay.
And what AI is going to give them is it's going to fuse data from whether it's sensors or humans, and it's going to summarize that data, and it's going to provide the key relevant points that someone can make a decision on. And that's going to be able to decrease the amount of time to make a command decision from potentially days or hours into minutes. And if a decision needs to be made in seconds, that's where predictive AI modeling and simulation and analytics comes into play.
Okay.
Because by having that command decision shift left, then we're able to make those split-second decisions and be confident in them because of the data that we've been given.
So largely also supporting the work that the general is doing and also that Bob is focused on the homeland. And I guess, as they say, the adversary doesn't hack into the system, they log into the system. So the zero trust principles need to stay there. We'll verify them later and check how many times you've logged in, ma'am, at your location. But with that, as we close, capabilities or technologies are, again, as we said, ever changing and transforming. From your perspective, and we'll start with Major General McPhail, in the next 2 to 3 years, what do you see is the most transformative on that terrain in supporting secure, agile, and edge operations? Go ahead, ma'am.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. So, really, I think it comes down to the evolution of AI and ML. We've talked a lot about AI and ML today, but we're just now starting to train it, right? And so, the more we train it, the more critical it will be as an enabler to our lethality as the U.S. Army. And so, when I think of AI, ML, I think of the human in the loop. I have a saying, only do what you can do. And so that's going to really let the humans just be that much better at only those things they can do. And when we look at the future of AI and ML, we call it the next ridgeline, is as we continue to train it, as we continue to understand the infrastructure that's required, I think we'll find that just like our phones going from a big old brick to a small handheld phone, we're going to see the same thing to where these GPUs are going to get smaller and smaller, and we'll be able to hold that in our hand as well in this futuristic environment. So I think it's not only about the evolution and the maturing of AI and ML, it's evolving and maturing the human's use of AI and ML in the future environment.
That's a great point and call out. Bob, how about you?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think we're so good at sometimes predicting like the next day, but not so great. Or the next year or 2 years, or I'm still waiting for my flying car. I think where I'm really excited, I think the general hit some really good points. I think also too, I'm a big believer in American exceptionalism. We need to do the things
Yes.
across the board to ensure that we remain the number one superpower in the world. And I really love what the general is saying about lethality and how we go in that direction. We need to enable our people to be the best. And I really want, like, I've stayed in Homeland Security now. I left briefly in 21 for the private sector and was like, not ready. I came back.
Yeah.
Like my job is to help ensure the defense of the homeland so that we all remember where we were on 9/11. I actually was still in uniform at that time. And I can clearly remember that day. I can clearly remember what our commander said to us. I can clearly remember what the NCOs said to us. I work to prevent that every day, whether it was at CBP or here now. CISA is really at the forefront at setting standards. Some of our work on SCUBA, which is our secure cloud baseline. Oh, Bob's going to screw up the acronym, but it's really good. Go to CISA, Google SCUBA. You can apply it in the private sector, the public sector. It's really amazing work. And I think Nabila and Ricardo have both mentioned some great things. And I think what Ricardo talked about on predictive AI, that is some really interesting work. We were doing a lot of that work years ago on when, I was working at CBP and their targeting systems and how we know, well, maybe that cargo container has something really bad in it. That's a lot of predictive analytics that go into it. So where I'm really excited, much like the Army, we were on a modernization journey at CISA. That is kind of that will finish. Well, you never finish modernizing,
right?
But we will close that big project out at the end of this fiscal year. We are now an Active Directory free environment.
Okay,
we've gone in a modern direction with very similar to what the Army said the General said on. Moving to Microsoft's cloud-based Entra solution, which is groundbreaking for us and really enabling us to be better. And then as what we lean into it in the next year is, how do we have the most effective civilian cyber agency possible? It's all about effectiveness. Right. It's all about delivering solutions on time, on target, and on cost. I never want to work on a program that is spending 70% of its money on a PMO. And everything else. Get that up into the high 98, 99. I want people delivering capability every day, shorter sprints, no more you're waiting 6 months for, I can't have threat hunting waiting a year for me to deliver a capability.
Right.
The adversary has shifted.
Right.
I need to deliver capability every 2 weeks or sooner to my operators.
It's a great look ahead, and I think Nabila would probably agree. We need you on the other side.
No.
Nabila?
Yeah, I mean, I could just be done after that. I think the optimism I have comes from hearing things like we are going to find more agile and efficient and just common sense ways to approach collaboration and integration. We're going to take some of the peripheral away. I'm also optimistic because we're doing this already on the border, especially. I've seen it. We've been doing it. We are using edge capability, and we've done it so I think well and are getting better at this point where we're optimizing it in a way that leverages AI smarter, better, bringing in those coalitions of the willing from various titles and authorities, again, as appropriate and responsible, to take this to the next level so that we can excel in a way that makes sense, that keeps us at the ready and in this posture of resilience and not just response. I think that is one of the beauties of where we are, but it's also one of the challenges, because I think demystifying AI is probably one of our greatest needs yet. It's where we've probably come the furthest. I'm proof. The fact that I can even be in this space is proof that there's an ability for anyone to learn. Yeah. But we really have to keep demystifying this and creating that pipeline of ready, agile, smart folks from all angles, from the military perspective, from the federal civilian perspective, really smart people on the business side, right? So we're not having massive PMOs that nobody wants to manage anymore. So I think there's the challenges are great, but I think that we are really on a much better path. We have the data, we've done the work. There's great capability happening, and with innovations that are happening all the time, getting those better integrated in a more efficient and cost-effective way keeps us operationally and strategically advantageous. So I think there's a lot of work ahead, but we're on the right path.
Awesome. And Ricardo?
So there's, a couple of things we talked about, like LEO satellite constellations. With Kuiper coming online in the next few years, you have another option, and it'll be a LEO constellation that has mesh networking. So you have additional capability to communicate on the edge. We talked about the data centers, how that wasn't possible on the edge. Well, now you have modular data centers that are able to be deployed in a variety of different form factors, and you have immediate access to compute to do whatever it is you need to do. And then finally, I think leveraging the power of the cloud at the edge is now a possibility. You're able to use all of those resilient resources in order to train what you need to, and use AI so that people don't have to worry about security, so that they don't have to worry about small IT tasks, and they can focus on the mission. And then if you, God forbid, do lose something like an entire region, it's resilient enough that you can just continue working and achieving what you need to.
This is really major stuff, guys. And from what I'm hearing from every perspective that we've gathered today, it's being at the ready, it's mission need for speed, and, collaboration across all agencies and industry as well. So with that, thank you for joining us for this special episode of GovExec TV, Capabilities at the Edge, presented by GDIT and AWS. Today's conversation highlighted the critical innovations that are shaping how civilian and defense leaders operate in the most dynamic and high-risk environments, bringing mission-ready intelligence to the point of need. As we heard from our expert panel, success at the edge demands not only cutting-edge technology, but also the ability to secure, scale, and adapt in real time. From harnessing AI to powering resilient connectivity and actionable insights, agencies and IT leaders are redefining what's possible at the mission edge. I'm Courtney O'Neill Allen with GovExec TV. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.